Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy Jonathan Macri with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast as we continue our countdown of the top 25 Knicks of the last 25 seasons. The countdown that we have been doing all summer long, which will take us right up until Media Day, which as we sit here right now, we're recording this on the final day of August. It'll be here in like a little bit more than 3 weeks. So, blink and the offseason will already be over. As a reminder, if you dig these episodes, support the show in any way you can. Go ahead, give us a nice rating, review, the whole thing. And of course, follow us on social media where we are at Knicks Film School. That is SKOOL on all of your channels. And as I have been for every one of these episodes, and I will be for another, what number is this? 13? So another dozen episodes after this. I'm joined by the one and only Andrew Claudio. Hello, Andrew. How are you, sir?
Hi, John. I had it every time you do the hostage note about social and the RSS feed that we have to plug because we got a note to do this at the beginning of pods. I've been trying to make a graphic and I keep forgetting to make the graphic to put at the beginning of the show. Maybe it'll already be up in post-production. So you got to see, folks, the thing that you probably just saw, or maybe I just cut all of this and none of this happened. I'm doing great, John. Seen a lot of you lately, not just on the mic and across from each other on StreamYard. People, I would hope, know this, that, well, I guess maybe you don't watch Mets therapy videos, but John and I hung out in East Long Island last week. Yep. My wife and I got to go hang out with your mom and your stepdad and their ilk. Shout out to bocce ball, which I'm apparently really good at.
Well, I mean, you're good at all sports, so that's not surprising.
I have a specific set of skills, is what it is. I don't want to say I'm good at all sports. I have a specific set of skills.
Okay, Liam Neeson. Okay.
Listen, you need me if I need to go protect my daughter and it requires throwing a bocce ball the exact length it needs to be to win and help a team of your mom and me defeat your stepdad and another dude that we met while we were there. Yes, his buddy. I'm your man. Okay. I also
pool basketball. Also,
that's right. I beat you and your daughter in pool horse. And
then I got it back, and I beat you the second time we played.
You did. You stuck to the mid range game. I was going for distance the first time. I didn't get control of the board much the second time around, but it was fun. Learned some stuff about you. America, you're about to find out. John Macri, deathly allergic to bees. Had no idea that it's that serious. You actually said the phrase, if I get stung above the waist, I will die immediately. And I was like, why are we outside?
I don't know about immediately. I if I didn't do anything about it, I'm pretty sure that I would die. It's been a long time since I was stung above the waist. So, and I know allergies like come and go throughout the course of your life. So I don't know, maybe it's not true anymore, but I don't really want to find out.
Okay. Do you have like an EpiPen?
An EpiPen. Yeah, I should have one of those, but they're incredibly expensive. So
okay. Rosina did ask me at one point, like, so what happens if he does? What would have happened if he got stung?
Hopefully there's some Benadryl in the house, and I run to the emergency room.
Well, I hope we don't find out literally ever what happens if you at this age get stung by a bee, and if our worst fears are realized.
Andrew Claudio, I don't know if there was a point at the end of all that I'm like bypassing.
Nope. Just banter at the top of the show. That's all.
But we were stung by one bee in the form of the anti-RJ Barrett Hive. How you doing? Not my first rodeo. So before we get to the subject of today's episode, which, as you can see from the title of this episode, is going to be about Latrell Sprewell, my all-time favorite Knick. We do want to spend a couple minutes addressing, some of the comments, which I know, Andrew sent me a text on my morning run today. Say, like, hey man, you should look at some of the YouTube comments. People are pretty up in their feelings about RJ being so high. And of course, I did what I do after every recording, which is read and reread and annotate all of the YouTube comments. And I do have some thoughts, Andrew. Would you like to hear them?
Sure. I have just a question, but I'll wait.
What's your question? And then I'll give my thoughts.
My simple question to the many people who replied to the last episode that we have RJ Barrett ranked too high, and how specifically was he ranked ahead of OG Anunoby? My first and probably last question that I've always asked about RJ Barrett to those that commented, why do you hate RJ Barrett?
So I have three things that I want to say. Number one, if me having to get on a podcast to defend my defense of RJ Barrett isn't proof of karma, I don't know what is. That's number one. Number two, I think from my vantage point, the way the voting worked out is that this list was, and you could see all the voting up until RJ. I am going to reveal something about the voting that is above RJ, which is to say, there was a very clear top three, which again, I don't think anyone needs a spoiler alert for that.
But they will get to find out when it gets there.
You'll get be in suspense for all that. After the top three, there were 10 other Knicks that someone voted for in the top 7. So that means essentially that there was a group of 3 and that there were 10 other Knicks that were in contention for like the next tier of the list. And for my 2 cents, you could make an argument for the guy that we're going to talk about today. Latrell Sprewell. If you want to make an argument for him to be in the top 5, I have at it. Maybe that's a little aggressive, but I think it's at least it is there for you to make. If you want to have an argument that the guy who ended up as number 4 on our list should be outside of the top 10, just outside of the top 10, but outside of the top 10, I think you can have that argument. But I think there is a next group of 10 after the top 3 that is kind of fluid. Not coincidentally, RJ Barrett ended up at 14. And if you look at the voting, which if you're watching on the screen, and I'll kind of try to summarize it now, looking at the guys who finish after RJ, which in order, OG Anunoby, Jamal Crawford, Stephon Marbury, Kurt Thomas, there was one, and this is true for everybody who came after them, there was one person who voted any of those guys higher than 10th. And it was me who voted Kurt Thomas 9th because I'm 87 years old. So like, the fact that there wasn't any really robust argument for any of the guys who came after RJ to be, there were a couple people who had, I think someone had Crawford 10th. I think someone had Marbury 10th, but there was no real arguments from anybody that any of these guys should be, inside the top 10, which then leads me to my last point in regards to RJ, which is kind of similar to yours. Like, why do you hate RJ Barrett? Like, okay, I get it. OG Anunoby has been everything that they could have imagined and then some since he has been here. OG Anunoby has played 97 games, regular season games in a Knick uniform. RJ Barrett has played exactly 200 more. So I guess the people who are saying specifically that OG should be higher than RJ are thinking like, look at all that OG Anunoby has accomplished in this short span of time. How could you say that RJ Barrett is better than him when he had so much more time? I look at these things a different way. And by the way, if you think this is a recent take, go listen at any time over the last 5, 6, whatever years that I've talked about All NBA. Andrew Claudio, what do I always value when I talk about All NBA and MVP?
Games played.
Availability is the best ability you could have. Now, with RJ, that's a bit of a tricky thing because there were a lot of games he played where you might have watched and be like, oh, is he helping us today? But when it comes to this list, personally, I think if you were here for a longer period of time and you didn't completely suck, and look, I'm sorry, folks, I'm the one who's saying this. So, this is me. RJ Barrett didn't completely suck. He didn't come close to completely sucking. He was good for most of the time that he was here and most of the games that he played. And the fact that his tenure was 3 times as long as OG Anunoby, at least for regular season, I think that has a lot of value for as good. And again, by the way, OG Anunoby, 97 games. It's not like he's played at an all-star level for 97 games. He's been a top 40-ish NBA player for most of that time. Is that fair?
It's probably fair. Yeah. One of the 10 or 15 best defenders in the league, though.
Sure. And how many times did we hear arguments when RJ Barrett was here that he was in the conversation for a top 40 to top 50 NBA talent? At least 97 games. I know that, so that's kind of what I have to say in response to all that.
Two things. One, whoever clips viral things that have clipped, if you've clipped John in the past and made us go viral before, clip that and make him go viral for that RJ take, because that was a strong, eloquent, stern defense of RJ Barrett and his tenure in New York. So keep it a buck. That was very good on behalf of John.
I've learned my lesson.
No. You're doing the kid a favor. I know. I said a kid. He's like 24 years old.
No, I took a step back. That's all that happened. I took a step back and I could see the whole picture. And that's, do I love, am I going to sit here and ever wish RJ Barrett was back on the Knicks? Probably not. But I recognize what he did and what his contributions were. That's
awesome. The second thing is that I had him ranked 17th because I spent the majority of the time that he was here wondering if they'd be better without him. So I do recognize he is a lot of the last 25 seasons, which is why the quantitative stats of RJ Barrett all exist there. I remain the case for him to be anywhere where he ended up for me was that 8-game playoff run, there's a playoff series where he was very important to, and a second playoff series where he had to become their second best offensive player. So I value with these lists how I developed them, and it probably leads right into Sprewell being in this list, even though it's post conference finals and NBA finals run. Greatness implies accomplishment, and RJ Barrett and his accomplishments, there's playoff moments that I can point to, and that weighs very heavily with me. And as we get into the rest of our list, top 13, you're either an all-star, you won some hardware for the team, or you have some very specific playoff accomplishments to point to. That rounds out the rest of our list, and I'm excited to talk about all of them, John.
Quick break to tell you about America's first ever USDA organic THC gummy. You know the words. Shout out to Cornbread. Yes, Cornbread, the source of your healthy happy hour. It's a natural and healthier way to experience a carefree moment. Cornbread's THC gummies offer a balanced sense of happiness and relaxation. Well, how do they achieve that balance? My favorite thing about Cornbread is it's just the right amount for me as someone who is not a regular user of these sorts of products, but still wants to get that relaxation without feeling anxious or paranoid like some other cannabis edibles, which is why Cornbread's 1-to-1 THC to CBD ratio is perfect for me. They have 10 milligrams of THC per gummy, which is just the right dose, and it gives me everything I need without any of the stuff that I don't want. If you are looking for a healthier way to enjoy a carefree moment, you have to give Cornbread Hemp a try. They have created the first ever USDA organic THC gummy that is 100% legal. As a special offer to Knicks Film School listeners, you can get 30% off your first order. Just visit cornbreadhemp.com/KFS and use promo code KFS at checkout. Again, that's cornbreadhemp.com/KFS and use code KFS for 30% off your first order. Cheers to a healthier happy hour. So Latrell Sprewell, as you can see the resume right here, he attended Three Rivers Community College and Alabama, drafted 24th by the Golden State Warriors. It's not up here, but I will just say because I was the strange individual who got into NBA basketball. Well, I guess not that strange because I live in New York and it was the year the Knicks went to the finals. I got into the league in 1993, which was the year after Michael Jordan left. So 93, 94 was the first season I was really, really into NBA basketball. And my mind kind of always gravitated towards the stuff that it does now. So I figured out pretty quick, the NBA has this thing where they rank the best players of the year, and they rank the 10 best, and then there's a top 5, and then there's the next 5. I remember at the end of that 93, 94 season, not that I was staying up watching a whole lot of West Coast basketball, but I was like, wow, this is Latrell Sprewell guy. it seems like he took Michael Jordan's place on this All NBA thing. Michael Jordan's been here for the last 7-8 years, whatever it's been. Now Latrell Sprewell is the best shooting guard in the league. And for that one season, he was. And what an accomplishment right out of the gate as the 24th pick in the draft. Could you imagine if someone was the 24th pick in the draft now, and then in their second year in the league, they were a first-team All-NBA player? Like, that doesn't really happen.
Well, it doesn't apply to our list, but it is pretty incredible that it's his only All-NBA appearance, too. That it was in his second season. You would have thought, oh, this is the first of many All-NBA appearances for Latrell Sprewell. And then between Michael Jordan coming back and his career going a different direction, it ends up being he becomes a bit of an anomaly in NBA history of a guy who has one All-NBA appearance and it's first team All-NBA.
Yeah, and like I guess the one thing, again, maybe for some of our younger fans who don't realize this, I mean we're getting a little off track here. Briefly, right now it is a guard and a wings. It's a ball handlers league. That was not the case back then, especially after Michael Jordan left the sport. And you go back and you look at the All-NBA team from 93, 94. You look at the big men. I'm just quickly. Hakeem Olajuwon, David Robinson, Shaquille O'Neal, Karl Malone, Charles Barkley, Derek Coleman, who once upon a time was supposed to be the next big thing. And then you go over to the other forward spots, Scottie Pippen, Dominique Wilkins, Sean Kemp. These guys are either top 50, top 60 all-timers, or were on track to become that in the case of Kemp and even, Coleman. Again, the talent was there. And then you go over to the guard position and you have John Stockton, all-time assist leader, all-time steals leader. You have Gary Payton making 13, but then you also have Spree, you have Kevin Johnson, you have Mitch Richmond, you have Mark Price. I'm not diminishing any of those guys, but if Mark Price went out there this next season, if he was in the league right now in his prime and did what he did in 93, 94, he would not be sniffing an All-NBA team. That's just the reality of the situation. It was a slightly different league back then. That's all.
Indeed.
So traded to the Knicks in 1999 for John Starks, Chris Mills, and Terry Cummings. That trade obviously overshadowed by the events that took place in Golden State, which led to them needing to trade him.
You say obviously. How many people watching this do you think have no idea why Latrell Sprewell, again, former first-team All-NBA player, two-time All-Star, was traded by the Golden State Warriors after 4 seasons in the NBA?
So long and the short of it is things started to go bad in Golden State. Latrell Sprewell, notoriously persnickety. Let's go with persnickety personality. One day in practice, got into it with then head coach PJ Carlissimo of the Warriors and tried to choke him. And the league looked into it, and it was a back and forth between, I think, the union got involved in the whole thing. Latrell Sprewell ended up getting suspended for the remainder of the 97-98 season.
Yep.
Which effectively was 50-something games. The only 60-something? 68.
At the time, it was the largest suspension in NBA history.
Only has since been superseded by our tests, right?
Around our test suspension after the Malice at the Palace.
Yeah. So it was very clear that they were going to move on from Latrell Sprewell. The only question was who was going to get him. And I'll never forget the day they traded for him. It was one of the happiest days of my life at that point. Because, and man, talk about things coming back around and go back to RJ. Much like a lot of people were disappointed to lose RJ Barrett and Emmanuel quickly to get OG Anunoby. Back then, John Starks won't appear on this list because he was gone. But I mean, talk about fan favorite and a guy who was here for a long time. So a lot of people were disappointed that they lost Starks, and I was still thinking about, oh, wait a minute, this is the guy who made first team All-NBA 5 years ago. Giddy up, let's get this.
Yeah.
Anyway, and things went pretty well. Obviously made the 99 finals, made the 2000 Eastern Conference finals, but of pertinence, neither of those playoff runs are in consideration for this list because we start at the beginning of the 2000-2001 season. And in that season, Latrell Sprewell named an Eastern Conference All-Star. The only time he was named in an All-Star while with the Knicks. So that gives him, 2 total appearances, right? For his career?
Four total appearances.
He made 2 other. Oh, yes, that's right.
He made 3 All-Star appearances in Golden State. I just spoke earlier. Yeah. 4-time All-Star, Latrell Sprewell.
And I want to go look at because you can't see All-Star voting for back then. You can look at all NBA voting. I want to see if he never was. He was never really in consideration when he was on the Wolves, which is a little surprising to me because he was like Garnett was the best player on those teams, but Sprewell was a big deal. Became the first player in NBA history to go 9 of 9 in an NBA game. Did that in 2003. And then during the time period we're talking about, 11th in total points, 6th in total steals, 9th in total assists. And again, that is since the 2000-2001 season.
Trivia time. Can you name, so he was the first player in 2003 to make 9 threes without any misses. It's been done 3 times by 2 players since. Can you name them?
Jalen Brunson.
Yep. The other person did it twice. We reviewed this when Jalen Brunson had his 50-point game against the Suns, in which he went 9 of 9 from 3. Not Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson and Steph Curry are not the answer. It's actually a very obscure answer that I don't think you're going to get. In fact, I'm willing to say, like, I'll put Izzy through college if you get this right.
Yeah, but in the recesses of my brain, the right answer is banging around in there somewhere. What's the right answer?
Ben Gordon did it twice. Yeah. I could have given you 100 guesses. I don't think we could have gotten Ben Gordon.
Could have given me 1,000 guesses. Might not have gotten Ben Gordon.
There you go.
So yeah, that is Spree's resume. And as you look up, if you're watching on the YouTube, but if you're just listening on the pod, I'll summarize it for you. The voting for Sprewell was a little bit all over the place. And this is where we'll get into my unique position here with Spree, because I just said a few minutes ago he's my favorite all-time Knick, and yet I have him tied for I have him 17th, which along with Kev and
Jeremy Goldstein.
Jeremy.
Yeah.
You got why? Yeah. Every time I see France, I'm like, what's this talking about?
The inside joke there is that Jeremy Goldstein
loves Fournier.
Loves Evan Fournier and was a stern they should play Fournier guy during both of his benched seasons here in New York.
Okay. Well, vive la France. So I had him 17th along with those two, and yet Sean had him 7th. Jeff J. Can we spoil the appearance later on the show?
Yes, Jeff is coming on later to talk about Latrell Sprewell.
Yeah, he had him 9th. Benji had him 10th. You had him 12th. Jeremy Cohen had him 12th. Mark had him 12th. A lot of really high rankings here for Spree, which I get because he's Latrell freaking Sprewell. But again, to go really just behind the scenes, when I first started, I was the initial one to send the voting thing around, and a couple people, including you, had Sprewell very high. And I sent out a reminder. I'm like, as a reminder, we are not considering the 2000 playoffs. This starts with the 2000-2001 season. And I expected him to drop down significantly for a lot of people. And he dropped down a little bit, but like not that much, which leads me to like, okay, I had him 17th because what are we talking about here? We're talking about 3 seasons. 2 of them were losing seasons. 1 season was an all-star season in which they won 48 games and made it to the, they were a higher seed. And they lost in the first round. Now, was it Latrell Sprewell's fault that they lost in the first round? No, he had, as he always did. If you go in 99, 2000, 2001, so one thing all those playoff runs had in common, the very last game the Knicks played, Latrell Sprewell balled out and not many people joined them. So again, not his fault. Just like I don't think it was necessarily his fault that the team wasn't good in the next 2 seasons. But ultimately, we're talking about 3 years, 2 of which were non-playoff years. So I ask you, Andrew Claudio, who had him 12th, why does Sprewell get that high for you?
He's an all-star.
He's an all-star. It's as simple as that.
It's as very simple as I had him at number 5 when I initially did the list, and I thought we were including the whole century, not just the past 25 seasons. So he dropped 7 spots for me, and I'm not putting RJ Barrett over him. I had several other people ahead of RJ Barrett. And it honestly became a conversation between him and Quickly for me because of how highly I think of Emmanuel Quickly. And if Emmanuel Quickly had won the Sixth Man of the Year award, I would have probably had him ahead of Sprewell and a couple other people. But at the end of the day, Quickly was a super sixth man that became part of the OG Anunoby trade. Like, you could probably, for me, make an OG Anunoby argument with Latrell Sprewell. But at the end of the day, my top 13 in particular, and our top 13, end up being all-stars and guys that won hardware. And for a franchise that has not had a lot of all-stars this century, it felt right to have at least I know it was the beginning of this list, the 2000-2001 season. I recognize that playoffs became something we should cherish because we didn't realize that even though it feels like a step back after what the 90s were, it would be the last time we saw a playoff win for a very long time. I had to value that highly. So for me, that's why he ends up at 12. I do understand the 17, by the way. I would, well, maybe when Jeff gets here, he can tell us why he's got him in his top 10. But yeah, that for me, it was very simple. He's an all-star. We should have an all-star at least ranked this high. So for anybody who may not know this off the top of their head, let's see if I get this right. The Knicks in the relevant time period we're talking about have had, I'm just looking at the list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's 10.
9, 10 all-stars. Thank you.
Yes.
9 of those all-stars I have in my top 13, and then I have Sprewell 17. So of everybody who made the all-star team for the Knicks, I have Sprewell the lowest of that group. So why do I have him so much lower? I had him back-to-back with OG. I think OG is probably the proper comp, and I had him one spot above OG with the thinking that OG has done a lot more winning here, but hasn't been here as long. And again, I talked about how much that matters to me, and obviously hasn't reached the high height. So I had Sprewell just ahead. But like everybody that I had ahead of Sprewell, again, this is just me. I had like they were either here for significantly longer and they played a prominent role on the team when they were here for that longer period of time, or they reached much higher heights, which is going to be a player that another player, oddly enough, that I'm lower on than everybody else, but I still have higher than Sprewell. Or they were just part of a lot more winning. Like, so I guess it was the only 3 years plus they didn't win all that much that kind of diminished the all-star part of it for me. I mean, we should look, it's still Latrell Sprewell though. And I love Latrell Sprewell. I just couldn't justify putting him too much higher. So maybe this is an answer to a category, but well, let's get into the categories. Yeah, let's do it. Because I wonder if his actual lasting image let's get into the categories, because then we can actually discuss what I thought was going to be your reason for ranking him this low. Well, so best memory, lasting image as a Knick, and this is supposed to be a positive thing, right? Mm-hmm. This is tough because we're talking about the last 3 seasons. I can't say something from 99 and I can't say something from 99 or 99, 2000. For the 3 years we're talking about, and maybe that's what it is for me, I don't really have a lasting image. My lasting, I have many lasting images of him. They're all for the first 2 years that he was here. Like, I could sit here and lie and say, oh yeah, I remember Game 5 against the Raptors in the 2001 playoffs and like how Sprewell came to play. Like, I know from looking at the box score he came to play that day. I don't remember that game particularly well. So it's not that. My honest answer, the day he was traded, I was livid, because for as much as I'm sitting here now and say I don't have a ton of lasting images of him from that relevant time period, it was still Latrell goddamn Sprewell. And the fact that they traded him for Keith Van Horn, who, spoiler alert, is not going to be making an appearance on this list, even though his one season here was pretty good, like I was flabbergasted. I was beside myself.
So these are two different answers for me, and one is positive, one is negative. So best memory happened on February 28th, 2003. The Knicks won in double overtime against the Orlando Magic. Sprewell, the Knicks got down 6 in the first overtime, and he hit back-to-back threes to keep the Knicks in it, to tie the game, keep the Knicks in it, and then eventually led to a 28 points, 28, 11, and 11. He had a triple-double this night with 5 steals as the Knicks won in double overtime against the Orlando Magic. It is also the same night that the Knicks retired Patrick Ewing's jersey. And it's the only jersey retirement I've ever seen at Madison Square Garden. I wasn't there. I'm saying what I'm trying to communicate is like,
I'm supposed to go to that game.
That's a shame. I had not yet been to the Garden in my life, and I gotta say, like, so this is for you kids out there. There was a time before we had DVR or the ability to pause and rewind live TV. And I didn't have a TiVo back then, which was a service that created DVR basically and pausing and freezing live TV. So what I did for that game, John, was I recorded it on my VCR. Like my parents taught me how to do that.
Incredible.
I would record, dude, there are video cassettes at my parents' house on Long Island full of old Mets games that I just wanted to go re-record because I had to go to bed early or I was at like a Friday night church thing. And I would come home and watch the whole game. I could tell you everything that happens during the ceremony for Ewing, who was there to present him, how funny it was that they brought Michael Jordan out as like, your NBA peers are here too, Patrick, and the entire crowd booed him. And then the icing on the cake, Alonzo Mourning also was there, his Georgetown brother, that ended up getting a loud chorus of boos by Madison Square Garden. All of the Knicks players like skipped halftime. They just went out for the ceremony and wore 33 jerseys. And Latrell Sprewell obviously made sure the Knicks got a W for the big fella that night with his performance. So that's my best memory from these 3 years of Latrell Sprewell.
It's a good one.
Yes. My question for you, and it's my lasting image, is his first game back as a Timberwolf.
So let's go to biggest regret.
Okay, here we go.
Because I remember it well. And again, the category biggest regret or something you wish would have got differently, even if it was out of the player's control. Well, this was in Latrell Sprewell's control when he came back to Madison Square Garden and basically unleashed a vitriolic spew of like, I don't know what it was that he actually said, but it wasn't very kind things directed at Knicks owner James Dolan, who was sitting in the front row. And it wasn't a great look for Spree. And it's unfortunate because it took place. And then I also tie it to another ugly moment that was James Dolan's fault, because I'm sure you remember this. In the game after the Charles Oakley ejection game.
What
did James Dolan do? He came back with Latrell Sprewell sitting by his side, and it was like such a blatant, like, oh, this is how you're going to try to win Curry some favor. The guy that said F you up and down the court, like what was it at that time? 14 years ago, 12 years ago, whatever it was. So now he finally makes his return to the Garden under these circumstances. And it sullied it even more. Now Sprewell's back more, and like he's one of the alumni that comes and roots on the current team, and I'm like kind of past it, but just all of that. And even if you want to throw in like I have a family to feed comment after he turned down 3 years and $21 million from the Minnesota Timberwolves, I guess the short answer is that like my biggest regrets regarding Latrell Sprewell have nothing to do with Latrell Sprewell on the court. And I feel like because of a lot of that stuff, his place in NBA history is not like lost or again sullied, but I don't know. I don't feel like outside of New York, I really don't feel like he gets discussed at all, right?
I would actually be curious when I do a pregame pod how Warriors fans view Sprewell. This is a three-time
think about him at all? That's a Don Draper. I don't think about you at all.
Probably, but like you have the Run TMC era, the
Mullen, Hardaway, and Mitch Richmond.
Yeah, so that's right. So like you have that era, and mixed in that era, you have a three-time All-Star that made first-team All-NBA for your team.
And Weber, which never happened because it was only 1 year. Yeah,
was part of a Warriors team that I'm trying to remember how far they got in any playoff stretch during the 90s. But regardless, like this was a guy that performed well for your team, and his lasting image for Warriors fans is probably biggest regret is the fact that he tried to choke his coach and got the biggest suspension in NBA history, and then made the finals his first year away from the team with New York. Look, it's tough not to say the biggest regret, lasting image is how he chose to behave when he returned to New York. You actually just reminded me of the publicity stunt that Dolan pulled after the Oakley incident. It was, and if I can, for those who don't remember it, that might not have been paying attention to the Knicks at this point in time. So Oakley gets ejected from the Garden, escorted out by security. I believe that was a Friday night game. It was a Friday night Knicks. Then that following Sunday is Knicks Spurs, because I remember it was a national TV game, and suddenly Latrell Sprewell sitting next to James Dolan, and next thing you know, they're doing a montage of, like, you know how like the famous Knicks are here, who's in the house tonight. Yeah. A montage finds its way onto social media, which was so clearly just put together over the last 20 minutes. Like, hey, I'm bringing Sprewell to the game now. Get something ready for graphics. Like, we plan this to be here. I even remember after the game, there's a group photo of Dolan with Sprewell and Houston and Larry Johnson.
That's what, and it's Johnson was on the other side of him. Yeah.
And it's not with the same like nostalgia that we have when we see the alumni now. It would look at as a cheap trick to try and, like you said, curry some good favor after one of the worst PR moments that the Garden had this century. So I think that might be my biggest regret now, because I wish the team were better and had made the playoffs more than once with him in uniform in this 25 season stretch. That's my answer to that.
That's a good answer. Let's move on to the next category, because we've been talking for this entire episode, and I feel like we haven't really touched on like what makes Latrell Sprewell. This category is, what role would they have on this current team? Man,
he doesn't have one. I'm kidding. That was just a joke to say the same thing again. He would absolutely have one. I am going to continue with the theme that I don't think it's like in addition to, it's in place of someone. And I think I know who it would be.
Well, I'm just going to say it. Like, I'm gonna make sure I think this through before I open my big yap. I think there is an argument that if you could have one Knick from this top 25 list and put them onto this current team, among the Knicks who are not on this current team, and you had them and you got them at the peak of their powers during the 25-year period that we are talking about. His eyes are open and wide. I think there's an argument that it should be Latrell Sprewell for this specific reason. Two reasons, really. One, immense versatility. And who am I talking about? I'm talking about Melo here. I think Latrell Sprewell could play. He could play your 2. He could play your 3. Shit, if you need him to play a little 4, he could play some 4, especially in the league today. And then the defense. Look, was Latrell Sprewell a top-notch defender? No, but he could dial it up when he needed to.
There's a couple. Hold on, he made all defense in his career.
I don't think he made all defense. He got some all defensive votes.
He made all defense second team the year he made all NBA first team, and he got 8th in defensive player of the year.
Okay,
1 year.
So again, he Early in his career. I want to emphasize that. Early
Not
in
the
his
Knicks
career.
portion, yes. But
no.
Those Van Gundy teams were known as defensive teams, giving up less than 80 points,
I mean,
sometimes less than 70 points a game.
In the season that we're talking about, the first season, the All-Star season, 2000-2001 season, he finished, well, I don't know. He got all defense votes that year, and he got all defense votes the year after that. So maybe I'm misspeaking. My point is, I think it would be a hearty debate for me whether I would want to transplant Sprewell onto this team or Melo onto this team, and who would have a stronger, a more positive impact.
Karl-Anthony's not the name that I'm going to push forward here. If I'm putting a two guard here,
any player.
Right, I'm getting Allen Houston.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
better shooter,
significantly better
outside shooter.
One way ahead of his time. Allen Houston exists today. He's Klay Thompson with a one-on-one game that probably puts him in the case of one of the best scorers in the league.
And I'm projecting a little bit that Sprewell would have extended his range and been a little bit more consistent, because when I think of Latrell Sprewell, I think of a guy who could shoot it, even though the numbers do not necessarily justify that. But he also didn't shoot it all that much. I mean, looking at his stats, the most 3-point attempts per game he ever took in his career, he took 5.2 a game in the 96-97 season, shot 35.4%. As a Knick, his high was 5 a game, shot 36%. Shot 37% his last year in New York. The end of his career, not as good. So he was a 33% career 3-point shooter.
Hold on. That's where I thought you were going, is that the 3 seasons we're talking about, 2 of them, you're talking about a 36% 3-point shooter and a 37% 3-point shooter on, like, if he took 5 threes a game.
I mean, for them,
team, that's fine. Like back then, that's like
back then that was a lot.
3. Yeah, but that's where I thought you were going with this, especially if you're replacing him. Like, if you're replacing Mikal Bridges, it's a guy that, look, last year you're not losing much if you're replacing last year's Mikal Bridges defense with the version of Sprewell that we're talking about. Well, a guy that would play 81 games,
If I had Sprewell on this team, again, we're getting too far afoul, but like, I would want to, because again, I believe that there is potentially an only one ball problem on this team. And if we were to inject another high level scorer / shooter onto the team, I just think that would be too much. So I don't know how we would rejigger the roster in that sense. But like, the one thing that I know we talked about at times last year is, do the Knicks just need another high level shot creator?
Mm-hmm.
And Latrell Sprewell as a shot creator, now he's not Melo. So there's your Melo argument, if you want to make that argument. But he's higher than Houston. And then the biggest thing, and this is what I was starting to get to when I started talking about this category. If you got a big game, man, like you talk about the Ewing jersey retirement, that was one example, but there are countless other examples of Latrell Sprewell just coming in with everything on the line and just leaving his absolute best out there on the court.
Well, that I will help transition into his lasting legacy, which unfortunately we're having fun with this list and this segment that we're doing. His lasting legacy has nothing to do with the past 25 seasons. His lasting legacy has to do with the 2 seasons prior to the qualifications for this list, but do echo what John's talking about. There's a argument apparently in the sports dork world about whether clutch is real or not. And I deal with this in baseball, that like there's a difference between saying Juan Soto isn't clutch because he hasn't hit a 3-run home run yet. Like, if you make that argument, you're stupid. If you were to point out that in high leverage, he hadn't been good until about a month ago, or that anybody's numbers with runners in scoring position are poor, that means that means a little bit more than if you like get a single in the first inning. That's like the definition of clutch to me. And you want to talk about a guy that the theoretical clutch gene existed, it's absolutely Latrell Sprewell, and he proved that time and time again. So I would want to go into the foxhole of an important playoff series with Latrell Sprewell on the roster, even if it was one of the last 3 seasons that he spent in a Knicks uniform.
He was a bad motherfucker. That's That is Latrell Sprewell's lasting legacy, as far as I'm concerned. Again, like for me, it comes down to up until we got Jalen Brunson, my entire life as a Knicks fan, I feel like, was spent wanting to have the guy that when he was on the other team, you were like, man, I would do anything to have that guy on our team. And Latrell Sprewell was the apex version of that for me, where for a short period of time, we had him on our squad. And I think the only other player that I could say that about in the time period we're talking about was Melo. And I just think Melo, there were other things that, may have thwarted him occasionally, maybe even thwarted himself, but as did Latrell Sprewell, by the way. So yeah, that's his lasting legacy for me.
Good stuff.
Yeah. All right.
We hear from somebody else that maybe has him ranked a little higher, John.
Yes, we're going to hear from Jeff right now, so stay tuned for that. Joining us now, you hear him on Casual Fridays, along with a whole bunch of other stuff because he's everywhere. Jeff J, how you doing, my friend?
My guy, how's everything going? Happy summer, or what's left of it? Because we are fast forwarding to the unofficial start of fall, and 50 something days away from the start of the season, right?
Are we down to 50 something?
I think 51 to be exact.
Yeah, it's something like that. Yeah. As of this recording, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, no, that's I didn't even realize it was that close. We have to get a countdown clock going somewhere.
Oh yeah,
it's on my phone, literally.
Oh, even better.
50 days.
Nice.
Yeah. So we got you on here to talk about Spree.
Yes.
We flashed the voting totals before. You were actually not the highest on Sprewell. I don't think we could pull.
Wasn't Benji like a couple ahead of me? I think Benji was.
I think it was it was Sean. Sean with a W.
He was
Chris.
One. Okay.
And Chris both had him 7th, but you had him 9th. You had him in your top 10. So yes, that's pretty high. And we also haven't had you on for one of these yet. So great opportunity. So like it's weird because we just I talked to you a moment ago and said we just kind of did 45 minutes on Sprewell, but I don't know that we did a whole lot of gushing, and that's why I need you on here because. Again, and I've said it, I'll say it to you. I don't know if I've ever actually told you this. Latrell Sprewell is my all-time favorite Knick. I just had a problem putting him, not a problem. I couldn't justify putting him as high as you did because, again, we're only talking about the last 3 years, and we're not counting the 99 season. We're not counting the 99-2000 season. So just give me your take on Latrell Sprewell. Why do you love the man? Like, why is he in your top 10 next to the last 25 seasons?
John Starks was one of my favorite Knicks of all time. Despite the ups and downs in the relationship with him, he cemented himself as one of the few transplant New Yorkers who actually embraced New York and became an actual New Yorker. Sprewell was traded for John Starks. And if you're going to be traded for an all-time beloved Knick, you have to represent at an equal or greater pace than he did. And to me, he was the saving grace of the last vestige of the comfortable, always reliable. We wake up out of bed and we get to the second round New York Knicks that I grew up on. This list was difficult, and I think when you look at the distribution of the picks from the whole faculty,
we talked about this a bit, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
He landed 13th. The average was 13. So you could have had him as low. I think you had him 17th, right, John?
I had him 17th. And I wonder even now, like reflecting back on it, was I trying too hard to not let my personal bias for him, because again, he's my favorite player of all time, get in the way? I wonder if I redid it and really re-examined it, would I have had him a little higher?
Right. And that's perfectly fair because we know the nature of listing in media. There's so much subjective criteria that goes into it that we can justify picks or argue over positioning. I think the fact that we had a distribution of 17-7 tells you that depending on the day that you executed the ranking, you could have had him anywhere. But you knew past a certain point, he was at least on a certain level. Like for you, 17. Like you could probably argue with yourself to say maybe 15, depending on who you got. Like to put him in the top 15.
Sure.
I'll say this about Sprewell. We're going to, this is a tease, right? We're going to have episodes where we talk about who didn't make the list.
Mm-hmm. At some point.
At some point. And who didn't crack the 25.
And honorable mentions of sorts.
Yes. I didn't know if you wanted me to blow up what it was going to call. So that's why I teased without actually dropping the name. But we're going to have an honorable mention.
The Tyler Kolek episode. Just say
right.
Okay.
Exactly. And I expect part of that conversation to include cultural phenomena. Sprewell, for his time, if the PJ Carlissimo incident, if everything that happened around Sprewell happened in this era, you want to talk about a different level of viral? This dude went from an unforgivable incident. We've seen it. Think about what happened with Draymond and the punch with Jordan Poole. And exponentially increase it by like a factor of 5 for what had actually happened. It's like the thing that you probably, a lot of y'all probably wanted to do to your bosses that you don't actually do. He did. What's up? Oh,
no, I was even going to go a step further than that. Yeah, I don't know if this is a bridge too far. Back in 1999, so now we're after the choking incident.
Right.
I think, obviously, there was no social media. Like, even though the NBA was a major sports league, it was the year after Michael Jordan retired. It was as anonymous as a major sports league could be, like, in the internet age. And you had an 8th-seeded Knicks team who was, frankly, not dysfunctional maybe for most of that season, but they were not good for most of that season.
Yeah.
Make it all the way to the finals. And, like, I'm not going to say it flew under the radar, but, like, it kind of flew under the radar. And then you look at his contributions to that run and what he almost single-handedly, like, did against San Antonio. I understand it was a 5-game series and, like, they didn't come close to winning. But, man... Like, so again, just you talking about the choking incident, what that would be today. If you had that Knicks team happen today, like, and I don't want to compare that Knicks team to the Pacers team that just went to the finals. They pushed the Thunder to 7 games, so it was kind of different. But like the other reason it was different, those Knicks kind of steamrolled their way through they definitely steamrolled their way over the Hawks in the second round. And even in the Pacers, they won in 6 games, So I don't know.
Yeah. Hold on. The comp isn't the Pacers, though. It's literally what the Heat did 2 years ago. It's seeing it, or 3 years ago, where they were an 8th seed that snuck into the playoffs through the play-in and upset a 1 seed that was one of the heavy favorites to win it all. Steamrolled a 4 seed. Well, I guess that season the Knicks were a 5 seed. But
how do we talk about Jimmy Butler?
He made the top 25 NBA players of the past 25 seasons on some lists that have a Patreon at Knicks Film School. I think that's the comp, because then they got steamrolled in the finals when they were finally overmatched, and that's what happened to the 99 Knicks. What's I think different, and I think this is where Sprewell and his lasting legacy is, Jeff. Like, I don't know how many Heat fans or even NBA people recognize that Heat run as anything significant other than like part of what the Heat normally do. It's built into their culture. What that 99 Knicks run was, especially to what 8th seeds were back then, only one 8th seed had ever won a first round matchup ever. And they were swept in the next round that they played in. This one made the finals.
That Nuggets team was swept by the Jazz?
Either swept or they lost in 5 games. They didn't go far the next round. No. But it was the second time it had ever happened. Right. And especially when you add on how little the Knicks won over the next 25 seasons, it stood out even more so. And that's part of Sprewell's legacy, right?
Yeah. Sidebar. that's still the most shocking series I think I've seen is that Seattle Nuggets series with the Dikembe holding the ball at the end in Game 5. It's an all-time moment. Like if you haven't seen it, just go back and watch that Game 5. It's super shocking. Think about a 10 seed beating the 69, the 73-9 Warriors in the first round. As shocking as that sounds, that's what it was for the time. But yeah, in terms of what Sprewell did, he had one of the most transformative reputational changes, I think, in sports, to where he was written off. Like, for a lot of people that don't know, he was written off when the Knicks traded for him. They sold, Golden State sold low on him because they just needed to get him out of the system. And the Knicks were taking a flyer on somebody who had all-star potential and who could possibly strengthen their lineup next to Allen Houston, have the two-wing set up before two wings was even a thing or even a thought.
It wasn't a thing.
And it wasn't. And for him starting off on the bench and then with all the injuries stepping up, he went from anti-hero to folk hero in New York within a span of years. And this is what makes this list so hard. I think for him, more than anyone on the list, it is kind of difficult to ignore what happened before the October, whatever, 2000. It is kind of difficult because everything he was in those two influenced what came after. We have three eras of Knicks basketball over 25 years. We have the 2020s, right? Yep. We have a decade now. Officially, we have a decade of good Knicks basketball, right? At least break even. This season, if they do well, then we officially have a decade where they were good for majority of the decade. So this 2020s, we have 2011 to 2014, the Amari and Melo years, right? Post-decision. And then post-decision, and then we have 2000 to 2002, which was like the last remnants of those 90 Knicks. 10 players within that 25 years have been all-stars, and Sprewell is one of them.
Yes.
So when I think about that, when you think about like the criteria for me, even within that, he didn't become an all-star until the criteria that we're looking for to rank these 25 players. So even with that, when I talk about cultural phenomenon, this dude was in every rap song, every music video. He popularized spinning rims on tires. For those of you who watch wrestling, you know John Cena had the spinner belt. There were spinning rims. I don't even know if I haven't seen them in the wild in ages.
I remember spinning rims.
Right. Those were the Sprewell rims when he went on MTV Cribs and he had them on his car. God. They were out for a minute, but he was the one who popularized them. That's why when I include cultural phenomenon, and that was 2001, which is included in this time. So I have pictures of myself with Sprewell jerseys on when I was younger. Like that's why this one was more personal for me, because I feel like for his total contributions as a Knick, especially holding on for those final few years, I'm like you, John. I could have had him 10. I could have had him 11. I think at the end, when he ended up as 9, I was like, I'm not outraged at this.
I think
I'm going to leave it.
I think the case for having him in the top 10, and we'll do this probably for the next group of guys here, is even though he only made one all-star team in this relevant time period, and even though we're only talking about 3 years, and even though for 2 of those years the team did not make the playoffs, you knew it was the same guy who could go toe-to-toe with Tim Duncan and David Robinson in an NBA Finals and look like he belonged on that stage. It was the same guy. It's not like we crossed over from the 99-2000 season to 00-01 and he became a different player. No, he was the same guy. He was the same guy for all 3 of those years. We all knew that because we had seen it, which is why I think, along with Allen Houston, who, again, spoiler alert, he is making the list and he's a little bit higher than this, I think they're probably the 2 toughest players to rank. If anything, I think Houston, it was a little bit easier for folks to put him higher because he stayed a little bit longer than Sprewell. And it's so funny. You cut it off at the 02 at the end of the 2002, like 01, 02. We keep joking about this, me and Andrew, in these episodes. The 2004 playoff run is the most forgettable playoff run in the history of the franchise. But it did happen. Mm-hmm. So, like, if you wanted to extend it, even though only Houston and a guy we just talked about a few episodes ago, Kurt Thomas, were the only two remnants from the previous era, whatever you want to say, like, you could tuck that in, and then things got really ugly, and then it's over. But
exactly, I saw. Go ahead, Andrew. Go ahead.
No. I have a question not about this. So
okay, just real quick, and get to your question. I've been seeing a lot of lists pop up about current players and their eras, and like who's the top. I know The Athletic put out top shooting guards, top forwards, and all of that. And I looked at the list, and I said, these are resume picks. This is not for the current year. These are straight. This is a resume list. And once you take it into that perspective, I'm not going to fall for the outrage of listing. We all do at some point, because sometimes it's like, all right, what do you at least try some reality TV, fabricate me. I want to believe in the kayfabe of what's going on, but this is like blatant. I'm going to keep it real. I think for the Sprewells and the Kurt Thomases and the Allen Houstons, a lot of this 25 years is based on the resume that they built before. Like they have established within the 25-year period, but it's kind of hard. It's just difficult to turn off my mind and forget about what Latrell Sprewell did when I think about, like, I can say, okay, it doesn't count, but I know it happened. And was that same player qualified? Like, did that same player execute at a high level within the criteria period? And I think for Sprewell, he definitely did. Like, this was if he had help, if they constructed the team a little bit better in those 5 years from 2000 to 2004. And thank you for reminding me about that playoff run, because I don't know where I was in 2004, but I tototally forgot about it. Which I've
been reminding Andrew for the last month that
I legit forget, and I'm like the memory guy that keeps forgetting. Right, like I'm the memory guy. It's like, oh yeah, they made the playoffs. So for me, when we think about the '99 run, that shocked basketball. That shocked the sports world. It shocked Nick. It's like, yo, we're on this ride. When it ends, it ends. Oh shit, we're in the finals. Yeah. We got Spurs. Anything can happen. And my one regret about that run is that Patrick wasn't there. And he got hurt. Because I feel like if he was there, it would have been I think it would have been a little bit of a different story. I don't know if they would have won.
I'll always wonder.
I'll always wonder. So yeah, go ahead, Andrew. I know you had a question.
Well, so it sounds like the best case, like the case I made for why Sprewell's 12 for me is what you said. Like, he did make an all-star team. Mm-hmm. I don't have many memories that stick out from the 2000-2001 season. It's the third season I was technically a Knicks fan. I remember Sprewell and Houston both making the all-star team together, though. And it's the first time two Knicks in my lifetime in my fandom, I should say, had made the all-star team. And that's back when it was rare that two players made it. So it's not so much that this is a career achievement nomination that he's ninth. I think it's deserved because of how few Knicks have made an all-star team on this list. True. But to your point, it's impossible to divorce that the year we're talking about in qualifying here is the end of a run, and it's almost an extension of it. So I get it. I actually do. You know, the question I have, by the way, is whether either of you owned a pair of Sprewells.
I did not. I had a jersey. I had the jersey with the black trim, which I still have. I got to pull it out. Yeah.
I don't know where it is. It got lost to time, but I did have a black Sprewell, the 8, the 8 before Earl, the 8 for Sprewell.
Oh, the Earl. That's JR's.
JR. Yeah.
He may come up a little
Smith
bit. Jr. I just realized something. Oh, we would spoil it though. Okay. Anunoby was. Yeah. Oh no, wait, that's right. RJ ruined it. Never mind. I thought we had number 8 3 in a row. but I forgot RJ ruined it. So we have 8988, but I'm going to ignore that I said that, Knicks fans. Be surprised about who comes out on Wednesday. Maybe we wrap here. I have a Two Americas question.
Sure.
So I can't wait for this.
Like the term Sprewells refers to the spinning rims. Did that become popularized because of his episode of MTV Cribs?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
He was the one who endorsed those rims. So he was probably the first celeb or athlete who promoted that they put those rims on their car.
Yes.
And when it was MTV Cribs, this was the first look we had into how the celebrities lived or what they were showing us. Go to the backyard or the front or wherever it was. Like, yo, this is my ride, whatever, big ass Cadillac or something like that. And he's like, yeah, we got the spinners on it. And then he's like spinning the rims and it just blew the mind. Like, so when you actually saw them on the street, you could see the wheels oscillating as you drove. So It was like the craziest visual effect, right? Like optical illusion, where you'd see them driving on the road and the wheels are spinning one way and the rims are spinning the different way. It was the coolest thing you could see, especially if it was on a nice car. It was, and they cost a pretty penny. And if you were driving them in New York, you were psychotic because of the potholes and everything like that. Like you were going to pay a pretty penny with that upkeep, but it looked nice.
I worked in the service center in Bay Ridge, Lexus in the summer of, it was either 2001 and 2002 or the summer of 2002 and then 2003. So I saw a lot of those rims. I fully recognize that I was not cool enough to have them on my car, even if I could afford them. And if I was going to put money into the car that I had at the time, it would have been a base tube, not rims. Because I was going for practicality, and I like to listen to my music loud. But
it's the system first, and then the outside. That's how you build it. But let me real quick, Andrew. One thing about this list that I think we also got to remember is we have to take into account the skill level of the player, just in general. Like, how good was that player in the time period that they were in, all time, and then in the time period that they were in. And to John's point, even within those last few years, because I remember it doesn't count because he wasn't on the Knicks. I remember that game when he came back with the Timberwolves.
And we talked about it.
31, in
MSG, and was talking shit the whole time to the crowd. You would have thought he was John Wick, the way he went after the Knicks and destroyed Madison Square Garden. You should have left that man's dog alone.
James killed his dog.
Yeah, you should have left that man's dog alone because he destroyed the Knicks. And the whole time we're just like, shouldn't have traded him. I'm sorry, Spree. Like, we love you still, but we were the enemy. New York City was the enemy to Latrell Sprewell, and he had a mission to exterminate all targets. There's no prisoners when he left.
He was traded for Keith Van Horn.
Who did not make the list? I don't believe.
No, Keith Van Horn did not make the list.
The immortal Keith Van Horn did not make the list, apparently.
Look, man, Keith Van Horn, former number 2 pick in the draft, was a prominent player on those very good Nets teams.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Sprewell has 4 All-Star teams. I don't believe Keith Van Horn has even one. But like, you could look at like their career points and rebounds and whatever shooting percentages, and you might be able to like, oh, these guys look maybe pretty similar. It's to what you said, Jeff. You watch Latrell Sprewell, pick any year of his career, really. You watch him, and then you watch Keith Van Horn. Like, one of these things is not like the other.
That's another thing. You had to be a lot of these picks, there. You had to be there. Like, if you were there, I looked at some of the numbers before we got on, and you're looking at the stats and the field goal percent. This was an era where if you just go mining for numbers, especially with how we consume sports today, you're gonna be like, this guy is on your top 25. He shot 40% from the field, and his first shooting percentage was in the bottom 3rd percentile. No, you had to watch. Basketball was different back then. Basketball was about buckets. Basketball was about winning the game however you had to win it because everybody was shooting bad, whether it was because of defense, was it because of inefficient shooting, whatever you want to call it. So amongst those players that did not care to have a pretty stat line, as long as they was hooping, though, that guy, and I know you in your newsletter, John, you spoke about JR. Two of the all-time you had to be there, Knicks, especially JR's number one. He's
JR
number one all-time you had to be there. If you wasn't there, I can't even show you YouTube. You had to experience it. You had to experience it. Sprewell was an all-time. You had to experience this player. Like there was commercials about, like he was a phenomenon. Like this dude, him, and especially in those Golden State teams, even before we got to the Knicks, there was a reason why his name was ringing bells. And that's why he can score as high or rank as high on this list as he did, despite within the 25 years not being on winning teams for most of that time.
We get in with this. You mentioned the lists that are coming out now. You know, the Athletic put out their list. We're doing ours over on Patreon. I was thinking when you talked about shooting percentages, we just talked about Allen Iverson and how like you can't judge him based on like field goal percentage. Go find pretty much anyone, any shooting guard, any wing that played around the same era as Latrell Sprewell on any of these lists and say, big game, who do I want for my squad, Latrell or the other guy? And I guarantee you're going to be picking Latrell Sprewell. For anybody who remembers him, you're going to pick Latrell Sprewell over a lot of those cats.
Just to drive that point home, and this will be the last thing I say, Latrell Sprewell in 41 playoff games with the New York Knicks has a 43 effective field goal percentage, and I don't care. I would want him in my foxhole and leading the cavalry, to be honest, any time, any place. One of the more clutch players the Knicks have ever had. And yeah, look, he's one of my favorite Knicks ever. Jeff, in the earlier part of the show, when I thought originally we were including the 2000 playoff run, he was number 5 for me. And then John notified all of us, and I dropped him to 12 because of that All-Star game. But also, it's Latrell Sprewell. Like, he was still very clutch, even if the team around him wasn't very good.
100%. And I think with a lot of this list, you're going to rank winning. You're going to winning is going to weigh heavily on a lot of these players that made a list. And thank God that we can have winning as a measurement that can precede other stuff. Because if we were doing this in an era where they didn't overcome themselves and be able to establish themselves in this decade, it would be a sad ass list.
You mean the top 20 of the last 20 seasons in 2020?
If it was like that and the 2020s didn't happen, he might be top 5.
Yeah, the list would be impossible to make.
Which is crazy. But I say this for Latrell. He's the dude, if you go out to an event and you get in a fight, you don't got to worry about him. He got your 6. He might step up in front and take the front flank. But if I'm going down, if they will sing my name in song and remember me, they're going to remember me because Latrell was on my 6. And we went down together, and he was the one guy who made this story more legendary and more palatable for my legacy because I had a fighter with me. Like you said, Andrew, a lot of dudes in his era would have loved. I bet you Kobe Bryant would have shipped 75% of that team out if they said, we can get Sprewell.
Oh, yeah.
75% of that team out if they would have get Sprewell. Some of the teams of those 2000s, if they had him, legacy defining, bro.
Look at the team they traded him to. The Timberwolves, before these last 2 seasons, had made the conference finals once, had made it out of the first round once. And it's the year they traded for Latrell Sprewell.
Mm-hmm.
So.
This was great, Jeff. We needed your injection of life and verve to the Sprewell discussion because he deserved it, frankly. Thank you, man. Anything before you go? You want to shout out?
Nah, just keep tapping into the 25 for 25. We got a lot going on. This is fun, man. I'm glad I will appear in the future on this list. there will be more appearances. So definitely tap into that and just get ready for the season. Rest up, relax, and because once we turn that corner to September, depending on who you root for with football or college football, this might be you might be wanting this season to start up earlier than possible. So so I'll be here, I'll be around, and thank y'all for having me. It's always a good time, man. Always a good time.
And it's always a good time for me as well. Anytime I get to talk to you, Andrew, Claudio. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I almost went to tip a cap, but I don't have one on, so I'll salute instead.
Good luck to the Mets today.
Why'd you have to ruin a good time?
Sorry.
Assholes up. What's wrong with you?
I don't know what's wrong.
And watch the game, damn it.
I know. I'm going to try. Okay. Everybody else, thanks for checking out another episode of Knicks Film School Podcast. Don't forget, if you dig the show, give a nice 5-star rating, write a nice review, follow us on all forums, and we'll be back with more fun and games before you know it. Peace out.